Welcome to Tech Tips, everyone. My name is Paul Landberg, and I'm a member of the training department here at Graco. With me today is Aaron Kopel. Aaron is a technical information specialist in our contractor equipment division. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Paul.
So, Aaron, today the topic is pressure washers, and specifically if we have a pressure washer that's exhibiting low pressure. So, Aaron, we have the baseline here again of we have a pressure washer. It's at the service tech's place, and it's exhibiting low pressure. Before we get into how to fix it or what we should look for, let's briefly talk about precautions and possible hazards. First, what is one of the first hazards that a person should be aware of here?
I should be looking at fire and explosions, which you can mitigate with, getting rid of those ignition sources.
So staying away from ignition sources because the thing has a gas engine and we're using gasoline.
Right.
Okay. Secondly, I see on here we've got burn hazard.
Yep.
Why would there be a burn hazard, and how do you mitigate that?
I mean, engines are going to get hot.
Yep.
Just, keep your hands off it. Keep any material around it that's combustible.
Okay, so basically stay away from hot engine parts, muffler, that type of thing. Okay. We always have to talk about injection hazard because these are very high pressure units, and so how does one alleviate that?
I mean, you just have to, realize that it is, we're looking at 3,000 PSI here. It can do some damage. If you see a leak or anything, turn the unit off. Don't put a rag over it or anything else.
And basically, you have to understand how to correctly conduct the pressure relief procedure.
Correct.
Okay. One of the things on these units, on that gun, is that there is a recoil hazard too. You really get quite a kick sometimes when all of a sudden you're blasting that pressure out. What would you say you would do to mitigate that?
That you just have to be prepared for it when you hit that trigger, that you may get that recoil.
So basically brace yourself for that recoil.
Right.
All right. And then last but not least, we talked about the fact that these use gasoline engines. Gasoline engines produce fumes. What should we do to alleviate that?
A well-ventilated area to let that carbon monoxide out.
Okay, and basically don't be using it in an enclosed area.
Right.
Okay. All right, so what is the first thing that you would tell a service technician to look for if they brought in a pressure washer and the complaint was low pressure?
I would tell them, let's start with the source, look at the inlet.
Okay, and what would you have them do there? How do they do that?
Well, usually you want them to make sure they have a good water source, first of all.
Okay.
But there is an inlet filter there.
Okay.
Inspect that inlet filter and make sure that it's clean, no buildup or any erosion.
And if you find there's an issue with it, what should you do? Simply replace it?
Replace it.
Okay. Okay, Aaron, so we checked out the inlet. The inlet checked out okay. What is the next thing you'd have somebody look for?
Next thing we would want to look at, Paul, is the unloader.
And what are we looking for when we look at the unloader?
The unloader helps bypass the pressure.
Okay.
So what we need to do is make sure that it's not clogging up the ball in there. They inspect it, make sure it's clean.
Okay.
Make sure the ball's clean.
What about damage to the ball or cuts or anything like that?
You would. If you get to that point, you're going to want to replace it.
Okay. So you could actually clean this thing up and or replace it. Is it replacing all of it or parts of it, typically?
You would replace all of it.
You would replace all of it.
If it's got any cracks or any worn marks in it, you'd want to replace the whole thing.
Gotcha. Okay. And lastly, Aaron, again, we've gone past the inlet. The unloader checked out okay. What would you check next?
Next, we'd move on to the pump.
And what are we looking for with the pump?
The pump, usually you can get a pretty good visual on if you look at it.
Okay.
There'll be a milky substance sometimes around it where the oil and water mix.
Okay, so that tells us what? A crack, a leak in a gasket? What does that mean?
Could be a leak, could be a crack. A lot of times when you see that, the oil seals need to get replaced.
Okay, so you can replace the seals in the
You
pump?
can replace the seals. You can replace the valves.
Okay.
Some other things to look at, especially if you don't see that or if you see leaks, make sure that you look inside and the ceramic pistons are all good shape still.
Can they be either fixed or replaced or no?
They can be replaced. Otherwise, a lot of times, if the shell of the pump, the casing of the pump's cracked, you're going to have to replace the whole pump.
Okay. So what would cause that?
Age, wear could cause it. Another thing to be cognizant of is that when it ships out, if it's a newer unit, they have a shipping cap they send it out with that
Okay.
must be switched out with the regular cap that's a vented cap when they receive it.
And what is this cap on, or what does it cover?
It covers the pump where you'd add the oil.
Oh, okay. And so if it's not switched out, a person could
The seals will get
overheat
damaged.
it or blow that. Yeah, blow the seals.
And one more thing to remember, Paul, is if the pump were to freeze,
How would that occur? What do you mean?
if someone were to leave it in their trailer overnight and it would get down to freezing,
Okay, that could damage the pump.
yes, could damage the pump.
Okay. Well, Aaron, thank you for taking the time today to talk to us on Tech Tips.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
For more information, please refer to the following.